He was locked in the office at midnight thinking he was a playboy, but he's a secret millionaire. The clock ticked loudly, echoing in the stillness like a constant reminder of the impending chaos. Jake slouched in his oversized leather chair, surrounded by stacks of papers and empty coffee cups. Outside, the moon hung high, casting a ghostly glow through the blinds. He believed he was just a guy with a wild streak, a hopeless romantic navigating the world of sudden riches. But at this moment, he was so much more than that. He was a man entrapped by secrets and shadows. Suddenly, the old diesel pipes groaned, sending a chill creeping down his spine. He squinted at the door, half expecting someone or something to burst in at any moment. The usual nighttime office silence felt oppressive, like a thick fog enveloping him. He had heard the rumors of this place, the stories whispered by employees who had come and gone. They said the office was cursed, hiding secrets that could shatter lives. Jake dismissed them, but tonight, the shadows seemed to dance, taunting him. Without warning, a strange noise ricocheted through the building. A sharp sound. Was that a whisper? Jake's heart raced, thudding loudly in his chest. He stood up, his palms slick with sweat. Casting a cautious glance around, he prided himself on his fearlessness. But the unease gnawed at him. What if they were right? What if the ghosts of failed dreams lurked in the corners, scheming for their next victim? Feeling brave, he edged toward the window, hoping for a breath of fresh air in this stifling dread. But instead, he found himself face to face with something unimaginable, a reflection, not of himself, but of an older man in a black suit, eyes glimmering with a terrifying knowledge. A shiver shot through him. Who was this man? Was he a part of Jake's life, or an illusion tied to his subconscious fears? Before he could process what he was seeing, another bang echoed from the office door. Jake's breath hitched. Suddenly, deep within him, he felt a surge of urgency to connect with anyone from the outside world. He hurried to grab his phone, desperate to escape this labyrinth of mystery, to call for help. But the phone flickered and froze with a message flashing ominously on the screen: no service. Panic seeped into his veins as he thought, am I truly trapped? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As he backed away from the door, the man's reflection lingered in his mind, a specter demanding answers. Suddenly, everything he thought he knew twisted and twisted again. Was he really just a playboy, living the good life, or was there a hidden fortune and an even darker secret that connected him to this place? With growing dread, Jake realized the truth of his life was about to claw its way to the surface one way or another. What would it reveal? Would it be the riches he never expected or a darkness he couldn't escape? Jake's breath came in quick, shallow gasps as he hunched against the wall, the shadows seeming to close in around him. The reflection in the window, a man in a black suit with a smile that chilled Jake's bones, seemed too real, too present. He squinted, half believing it could be a trick of the light, but no. The man's eyes bored into him, flickering with a deep understanding that felt predatory. The frantic pounding on the door jolted Jake from his thoughts. This was no time to lose it. Either he had to confront whatever was out there, or he was going to be consumed by this nightmare. Summoning courage, he approached the door, casting a wary eye down the long, dimly lit hallway behind him. The shadows shifted, pulling at his nerves like tendrils of smoke. "Who's there?" he called, trying to sound tougher than he felt. But the silence that answered was heavy, pregnant with something unsaid. Sweat trickled down the back of his neck as he pressed his ear against the door, more banging, louder now, a visceral urgency punctuating the air. It was like someone or something was desperate to get in. He hesitated for a moment, feeling a competing pull between fear and curiosity. Was it a friend? A foe? Or just the curse that had buried itself within these walls? Jake? A familiar voice cut through the cacophony of noise in his head. It was Mark, his old college buddy and the last person he wanted to see. "Jake, open up. We need to talk, man. It's important." Jake's heart sank. How had Mark found him here? The last thing he wanted was to drag his past into this twisted present. But there was something urgent in Mark's tone, a tremor of fear that rekindled Jake's own. What could possibly be so important that Mark would break down the door at this hour? Still, Jake lingered. Trust was a fragile thing when shadows wove around your consciousness. He took a deep breath, willing himself to fight back the dread. Perhaps Mark held the answers he didn't know he was seeking. "I'll be right there," Jake shouted back, masking his trepidation. He turned the knob, expecting the worst as he swung the door open wide. Mark stood there, eyes darting wildly, his usually calm demeanor replaced with palpable anxiety. "What the hell is going on here?" he blurted out, stepping inside, the tension of the moment crashing down like thunder. Jake shut the door, the click of the lock feeling like finality. "I don't know. I'm trapped in a nightmare. I saw a man in the window. He's watching me." Mark's face paled. "A man? A stranger?" "Not just any stranger," Jake stammered. "He looked like he knows me or knows something about me. Something dangerous." Mark looked over his shoulder, uncertainty casting a shadow over his features. "We have to leave. Now. If what I've heard is true, there's more at stake here than you realize." "What do you mean?" Jake demanded, confusion crashing over him. Suddenly, a flickering light caught their attention. The office power flickered, plunging them into semi-darkness, the only illumination coming from the moonlight streaming through the blinds. The air grew heavy, thick with an unshakable dread. "Jake, listen to me." Mark's voice sharpened, piercing through the gloom. "There are people looking for you. People who want the secrets you're harboring. You have no idea what you're mixed up in." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean?" "I'm just a guy trying to figure things out, living a normal life." Mark's eyes were intense, every frantic breath filled the room with urgency. "Normal? Nothing about this is normal, Jake. You're in way over your head. We need to go now before they find us." Before he could respond, the windows rattled, and the lights died completely, leaving them cloaked in darkness. The pounding on the door commenced anew, louder and more frantic this time. Panic surged through Jake. "Who are they?" he shouted. "What do they want?" But Mark's eyes widened, caught somewhere between dread and determination. "We have to face it together. Whatever is out there, it's coming for you. And it knows you're here." The door splintered at the hinges, a horrible crack echoing through the silent office as adrenaline surged in Jake's veins. Crouching, heart racing, Jake knew they were out of time. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. Who was the man in the window? Why did Mark know about the dangers lurking at the edges of his new life? With one last panicked glance around the office, Jake made his decision. "I want to let them take me," he thought, a fierce determination crystallizing within him. But the question remained, would escape lead to freedom or further entrapment? As the door burst open, darkness spilled through, and a figure emerged, shrouded in shadow, static and still. What was next? Only one thing was certain: Jake was about to discover just how deep the rabbit hole went. The figure stepped into the room, its form partially obscured by the darkness. Jake's breath caught in his throat as his instincts screamed at him to retreat. All thoughts of escape fled his mind, replaced with blinding fear. Was this the man from the window? "Jake!" Mark hissed, pushing him back as he shielded him with his body. "Stay close." The silent figure, dressed in that same bone-chilling black suit, tilted its head as if assessing them, the smile on its lips unnaturally wide. The eyes, dark enough to absorb the faintest glimmer of light, were locked onto Jake, pulling him into their depths like a moth to a flame. "They've found us," Mark whispered, his voice shaky and urgent. "Don't make a sound." But the urge to shout, to call for help, clawed at Jake's throat, choking him. He couldn't understand why this was happening. Why him? What secrets echoed in the halls of this office that could attract such a presence? Jake the figure's voice hit like an ice-cold wind, smooth and menacing. Do you remember me? Recognition flickered to life at the edges of Jake's memory, a murky fog of anxiety drawing from the past. He squinted into the darkness, but the shadows played tricks on him, swirling like a chaotic dance. No, who are you? The figure took a step forward, and a shiver raced down Jake's spine. The weight of their gaze pressed heavily against his chest. You have something I want, and I'm prepared to take it from you if necessary. What do you mean? Jake's voice wavered, panic rising to the surface. I don't have anything. Mark shifted slightly, an inkling of disbelief washing over his features. You have no idea what you're talking about, he spat at the figure, defiance threading through his tone. He never wanted any of this. Jake's pulse hammered in his ears, fear mingling with confusion. What could possibly be worth all this? He felt the room closing in, the shadows creeping forward as the figure smiled wider, revealing teeth like polished blades. You both have been living in a fantasy, oblivious to the game being played, the figure purred, tone dripping with mockery. But now, reality comes crashing down, and it's time to wake up. Jake exchanged glances with Mark, urgency and desperation flaring in their eyes. We need to get out of here, he whispered. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, illuminating the office in a washed-out glow, and for just a moment, Jake caught a glimpse of the figure's face. It twisted into something grotesque, a reminder of all that was wrong in his life, darkening even the faintest hope that remained. The door, now splintered and barely intact, rattled again, another thud reverberating through the room. Outside, hushed voices whispered urgently. Find him. He can't escape. Fear turned to adrenaline. Jake's survival instincts kicked in. Mark, we have to move. He shouted. Mark grabbed Jake's arm, pulling him toward the window. We'll climb out and make a break for it. Now. The figure smiled serenely, unmoved by their panic. You think you can escape this? You'll see, Jake. The chase is just beginning. With a final glance at the ominous shadow, they darted toward the window. The cold night air beckoned them like a siren's call. As they climbed out, the world below seemed vast and waiting, but what awaited them outside was a question shrouded in darkness. Jake never looked back. He had to believe they could outrun whatever nightmare chased them. But deep down, unease wrapped around his heart like a live wire. They hit the ground and began to sprint, breathless and frantic. But Jake churned with anxiety. Was he running towards freedom, or had he just plunged deeper into the abyss of his own making? For every step he took away from that office, the echo of the man in the black suit followed, reminding him that he couldn't escape his past. And the scariest thing of all? The truth lingered just ahead, wrapped in veils of uncertainty. What grim revelation awaited them at the mouth of the night? The cold air sliced through Jake as they plunged into the night, every breath filling his lungs with the sharp taste of fear. They sprinted away from the office, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the stillness, each beat a reminder of the urgency pulsing in their veins. Where do we go? Mark gasped, glancing over his shoulder. The shadows seemed to stretch and wrap around them, a chilling embrace where the figure had just stood. Anywhere but here. Jake shouted back, his voice raw and desperate. The streetlights flickered in and out, casting eerie shadows that danced in the corners of his vision. He felt a nagging sense of dread. Was the figure merely playing with them, letting them believe they had escaped? They rounded a corner and came to an alley, the darkness swallowing them whole. Jake's heart pounded as they ducked into the narrow passage, the pungent smell of refuse assaulting their senses. Did you see its face? Mark whispered, shaking uncontrollably. What was that thing? I don't know. Jake replied, his voice strained. But it wanted something from me. Something important. Mark pressed against the wall, trying to catch his breath. We have to figure out what is going on. There's got to be something we can do. Tension coiled in Jake's chest. Like what? It was like it knew me, like it knew everything about me. The weight of that realization crushed him. What secrets lay buried in his past? From the street beyond, footsteps crunched on gravel. Their blood ran cold. Someone was searching for them. Over here. Mark hissed, pulling Jake further into the alley. They crouched behind a dumpster, breaths shallow and hearts racing. The footsteps grew closer, anxiety wrapping around them like a chokehold. Split up, Mark suggested suddenly. It'll be harder for them to catch us that way. No. We stick together. Jake snapped, feeling a surge of protectiveness. He couldn't let anything happen to Mark. Not after everything they had faced. The footsteps stopped outside the alley. We know you're in here. You can't hide. A voice growled, low and gravelly. Jake pressed his back against the cold metal, goosebumps crawling down his arms. What do they want? He breathed, panic fluttering in his chest. Whatever the guy in the suit wants, I'm guessing, Mark replied, voice barely above a whisper. Then, a sudden crash echoed from the other end of the alley as a figure loomed into view, his outline flickering like a nightmare in the gloom. Jake felt a jolt of fear shoot through him. Run! They burst from their hiding spot, darting down the alley, urgency flooding their every move. The figure behind them laughed, a dark sound that clawed at their resolve. You think you can run? It taunted, the voice flickering between the shadows like a ghost. You can't escape your destiny. Jake refused to look back. They ran until their legs burned, adrenaline paving over their fear. They reached a street, thrusting into the glaring lights of a convenience store. Inside, they stumbled, wild-eyed and gasping for breath. What do we do now? Mark asked, scanning the store as if looking for salvation. Jake racked his brain. He had to stay focused. We need to call the police. But just as he reached for the phone, the lights flickered again. The door chimed ominously as a figure stepped into the store. Panic surged. It was dressed in a sharp black suit. Jake's heart thudded painfully against his ribs, terror clawing at his throat. Found you, it whispered with a wicked grin, and in that moment, Jake realized that this chase was far from over. Mark, he breathed, fear penetrating every crease in his voice. What if we can't get out of this? The realization hung heavily in the air, and the world around them tilted dangerously. What cruel fate awaited them with the darkness approaching? What truths lay waiting to be unearthed? The figure stepped closer, the dim store lights reflecting off its polished shoes, and Jake's thoughts raced. There had been no time to think about the implications of this creature stalking them, but now the reality crashed down with suffocating weight. What do you want from us? Jake's voice trembled, revealing the desperation surging within. A sly smile crept across the figure's face, sharp and chilling. You know exactly what I want, it said, voice smooth like silk yet sharp as a knife. The key. Key? Mark repeated, confusion etched onto his features. What key? We don't know anything. The figure chuckled, a low, menacing sound that filled the tiny store. Oh, but you do. Don't play coy with me. The key to your past, Jake. The one you've hidden from yourself. It took another step forward, and Jake's pulse quickened. He felt the air between them thicken, an invisible force pressing down on his chest. Stay back. Jake shouted, instinctively reaching for Mark as they stumbled backwards. The shelves loomed large, their contents a potential barrier or a trap. We want to let you take us. The figure shrugged, seemingly unmoved by their fear. You think you can fight your past? You think hiding will save you? The darkness will come for you, and you'll wish you had let me guide you instead. Jake's heart raced. This was not just some monstrous threat, it was a truth almost too horrible to fathom. Could it really know him? Listen, we don't have anything you want. Mark said, voice rising with panic. We swear. Just leave us alone. Is that really what you believe? The figure sneered. It stepped forward, and the room fell dangerously silent. Only the neon hum of the sign outside dared to disrupt the atmosphere. Mark's breathing quickened, and he pressed closer to Jake. They were trapped, backs against the cool metal of the freezer doors behind them. Just as the figure reached out to grab Jake, the bell above the convenience store door chimed again. A sharp bark erupted from outside, followed by a loud crash. The figure faltered for just a moment, and that moment was all Jake needed. Now! He yelled at Mark, and they vaulted over the nearest aisle, scrambling toward the rear exit. They burst outside into the night air where a chaotic scene unfolded. A police car had skidded to a stop, lights swirling in a kaleidoscope of blue and red. Officers poured out, guns drawn and shouts filled the air, cutting through the night like knives. "Don't move," a voice barked. The figure paused, its face a mask of frustration before melting back into the shadows. "Jake." "Mark." "Over here." An officer waved them toward safety. Relief washed over Jake for a split second. But when he looked back, the figure was gone, a lingering threat lurking just beyond the edges of reality. Shaking, they sprinted toward the officers. "You have to help us. There's someone after us. We don't know what he wants, but calm down." Another officer shouted. "You need to stay still." Panic ignited in Jake again. "No. You don't understand. We're not safe." But the officers exchanged nervous glances. Their confidence faltered. "We'll check the area," one muttered, barely concealing his anxiety. But Jake saw it in their eyes, fear. Then Mark's voice broke through, softer yet charged with urgency. "Jake, maybe we should show them the recordings?" "No." Jake shot back. "They'll think we're crazy. But it's the only way." Mark pressed, desperation creeping in again. "We need to prove what we saw." As they hesitated, an eerie silence enveloped them once more. The flickering lights above seemed to vibrate with an unseen energy. Then, a low rumble of laughter echoed through the night air. It was back, lost in the winds, but their destiny lay shrouded like a phantom haunting their every step. What truth lay hidden within those recordings? What darkness awaited them if they dared unveil it? The tension in the air crackled like a live wire, electrifying Jake's senses. The laughter, the sound of it sent shivers rippling down his spine. He turned toward the officers, their white-knuckled grips on their weapons betraying their fear. "We need to go," Jake urged, pulling Mark's arm. "Now." The officers hesitated, looking over their shoulders into the shadows where the figure had vanished. But one of them started, unsure. "If you guys have footage, no. Don't you get it?" Mark interrupted, his voice rising. "We can't wait. It's coming for us." The lead officer's eyes were wide, but he seemed torn between duty and dread. Finally, he nodded, gesturing for the others to follow. "All right, lead the way." They sprinted down the street, hearts pounding like drumbeats of impending doom. Every glance backward felt like a step into a nightmare. With each stride, Jake felt the certainty of danger prowling just behind them, waiting for the right moment to strike. Suddenly, Mark bumped into a barricade, a cluster of police cars with lights flashing, their sirens wailing like banshees. They both skidded to a stop. "What now?" Mark asked, almost breathlessly. "Over here," an officer shouted, waving them towards a heavy black SUV. The door swung open, and two officers reached for them, pulling them inside, away from the chaos of the night. As the door slammed shut, Jake let out a heavy sigh of relief. Safe for now. But the eerie laughter echoed in his mind, taunting him. The officers inside began questioning them, rapid fire and urgent. "What did you see? Who was that? Why were you running?" Jake struggled to articulate the terror that had gripped them. "It knew me. It said it wanted the key to my past. I don't understand." "We need to see the footage," the officer insisted, a sense of urgency building again. "Right now. Show us what happened." Mark fished out his phone, hands trembling as he pulled up the recording they had captured that night. The screen flickered to life, and they huddled closer, the silence in the vehicle pressing heavily against them. But when the footage began playing, their faces fell. The darkness played tricks, and there was nothing but static and distortion, shadows flitting across the screen like fleeting memories. The laughter roared in the background, but the figure was nowhere to be seen. "What is this?" One officer snapped, frustration etched across his features. This isn't helpful. It's real. Mark pleaded, his voice rising again. We were just there. It was right there. The officer's skepticism was evident. You're sure you're not imagining things? In that moment, panic twisted within Jake. No. You won't understand until it's suddenly. A loud thud reverberated through the SUV, rattling the windows. Everyone froze. The sound came again, a heavy vibration, echoing through the night like a looming threat. Stay down. The officers shouted, pulling out their guns, eyes darting to the darkness beyond the vehicle. The air grew weighty. They could sense that the figure was near. Jake pressed himself against the seat, heart racing. This was the moment. If they didn't act now, they'd become trapped in whatever twisted web this entity had spun. As if in answer to his thoughts, the door beside him swung open, the night chill rushing in. The figure loomed once more, impossibly close, a gleam of malice dancing in its eyes. You've come for the truth, haven't you? It hissed, voice dripping with mockery. In that instant, Jake realized they were far from done. The key was not just a metaphor, it pulsated with blood and memory. They had to find it, to confront the shadows that had haunted him for too long, but how could they face something that had already unnerved the bravest of officers? The laughter swelled again, echoing ominously as the night deepened around them. Jake felt something shift inside him, a gnawing urgency to uncover what lay buried beneath layers of oblivion. Would they uncover the truth, or would it consume them whole? A heavy silence enveloped the SUV after the figure's chilling declaration. Jake could feel the frigid breath of dread clawing at his spine. The officers edged closer, eyes wide, weapons raised as if they could pierce the shadows that seemed to thicken in the air. Who are you? One of the officers shouted, voice trembling slightly. The figure stepped forward, and the interior lights of the SUV flickered, casting an uneasy glow on its face. It was obscured, a grotesque blend of shadows and features that twisted like a mirage. I am the past, it hissed, and you are about to unlock what you do not remember. Jake's heart thudded painfully against his chest. It was all too surreal, like a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. What do you want? He managed to croak out, his voice barely piercing the thick tension inside the vehicle. The figure let out a low, resonating laugh that reverberated through the SUV, drowning out the sirens and the chaos outside. To reveal the key, it murmured, and to set you free, or rather, to bind you to me forever. Suddenly, the lights in the SUV flickered again, this time plunging them into darkness. Panic surged as Jake fumbled for Mark's hand, gripping it tightly. Every instinct screamed to bolt out of the vehicle, but they were trapped, a cage of fear and uncertainty. Turn the lights back on. One of the officers shouted into the dark, desperation creeping into his tone. The figure moved effortlessly, gliding closer, and Jake felt the creeping chill of its presence. Your truth lies in the shadows there, hiding within your memory. It's all connected. The words flowed like molasses, slow yet heavy, wrapping around Jake's mind. You all have keys, but only one will unlock the doors. What doors? Mark shouted, his voice tinged with breaking resolve. What are you talking about? Doors to your past, the figure said, now inches away, its breath a cold whisper against Jake's skin. Doors to a past that wants to consume you. The officers edged back, trying to create space between them and the figure, but the atmosphere felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. Stay back. One officer yelled, a quiver threatening to invade his authority. The darkness held its breath, everything suspended in one terrifying moment. Then, the laughter erupted again, slicing through the tension like a knife. It echoed wildly, bouncing off the metal walls, reverberating in Jake's skull, drowning all rationality. In a frantic effort, Jake cranked his head towards the officers. We need to get out now. We can't stay. Before he could finish, a blinding light flooded the SUV as a nearby patrol car repositioned, illuminating the scene. The figure recoiled, its features briefly illuminated. Jake's breath caught. It looked just like him, an uncanny mirror reflecting back not only his face but his deepest fears and regrets. You're ready to remember, Jake, it hissed, eyes glinting with an unnatural hunger. Are you prepared to face who you truly are? In that moment, a gut-wrenching sense of recognition settled over him, pulling him back in time, unraveling pieces of a memory he couldn't quite grasp. Fear gripped him, but there was a spark of realization, a truth he was too terrified to confront. The headlights of the patrol car faded, leaving them in grimmer darkness once again. The laughter returned, low and sonorous, filling every corner of the SUV. We don't have time. Mark yelled, voice cracking, grasping desperately for control amidst the chaos. Just then, the figure lunged, and everything crashed into chaos. Windows rattled as shots rang out both from the officers and from the depths of darkness, echoing the imminent peril of their standoff. Jake braced himself, feeling the pressure of truth pull him under. Would they break free from the grip of their past, or were they destined to be engulfed in its haunting embrace? As the tumult engulfed them, one chilling question crystallized in the air. What key were they truly seeking, and who would survive the unlocking? The answer loomed like a specter, just out of reach. The figure surged forward, its form shifting, a dark specter swallowed by the SUV's tight confines. Jake's instincts flared like sirens in his head. He felt Mark's grip tighten on his arm, their shared anxiety crackling through the air like electricity. Bullets ricocheted off metal, shards of panic exploding in his thoughts. Get back! One of the officers screamed, firing again. The deafening blasts echoed, but the figure, this haunting version of Jake, moved unnaturally, gliding through the chaos like it was mere fog. Jake's hands shook as fear gnawed at his gut. Mark, we need to get out. Now. He could barely hear himself over the frantic exchange of gunfire, the rapid beat of his heart drowning out reason. Stay down. Mark yelled, his voice strained, grounding Jake even as the shadows deepened. They crouched low, huddled together, yet the figure stood resolute, a twisted mockery of Jake, unyielding and present. He stared into those dark, glinting eyes, recognizing pieces of himself he had fought so hard to bury. Don't you see? The figure breathed, its voice slithering through the chaos as unnerving laughter underlined each word. Every choice, every regret, it's all here. You think you can run from it? I am you. Amid the anxiety, an unsettling curiosity surged within Jake. I don't want to be you, he countered, his voice strained yet defiant. If you're me, then why? It was a question minimizing terror, replacing it with sheer desperation. Because I know your secrets. I know what you've done. And I can show you how deep it all goes, the figure intoned ominously, inching closer, almost daring him to venture into the obscured past. Outside, the chaos of sirens lingered, but the air inside felt thick, pressing against Jake's chest. With each passing heartbeat, the figure seemed to loom larger, wrapping him in an inescapable grasp. The weight of his past threatened to crush him under its burden. Enough of this! Shouted one of the young officers, his voice straining against the tension. His weapon shook, finger hovering near the trigger. What do you want from us? To unlock the truth, the figure hissed, staring directly at Jake, the finality of its words resonating in the very marrow of his bones. Your truth lies hidden. Without it, you're forever lost. Suddenly, the SUV's lights flickered and dimmed, each sputter stripping away the remaining shreds of hope. It was like being swallowed by night itself, a void of uncertainty, confusion washing over him like a suffocating wave. Look inside, Jake. Mark urged, his voice anchored in urgency. Don't let whatever that is control you. We need to face this together. In the deafening quiet that followed, Jake felt the pressure of memories stirring like ghosts. He whimpered slightly, heart racing, adrenaline coursing. Unlock? What do you mean to unlock? He shouted, disbelief tangled with a flicker of acknowledgement. Your key lies buried in the past, Jake, the figure replied, twisting into Jake's worst fears and shattered hopes. But only one of you can survive the truth. A shudder ran through Jake, and with it, a glimmer of insight sparked. Memories pushed aside, emotions buried deep. The realization began to seep through the cracks in his constricting bravado. I want to let you take me. Jake growled, even as resentment churned doubt within. This ends now. In that moment, the atmosphere shifted, tension bending under a new weight. The figure seemed to tremble, then transformed into an abyss of shadows and whispers, drawing the attention of the officers. "I'm ready," Jake declared, though uncertainty curdled in his gut. "Whatever it takes." As the last shot pierced the silence, sending shivers of dread spiraling into the darkness, Jake's mind spun to the brink of discovery. What awaited him in the depths of memory could free him or destroy him, but before he could understand the path before him, the SUV's roof exploded with crackling electricity, the world outside erupting in chaos. "Hold on!" Mark screamed, just as everything went dark again, plunging them deeper into this battle of realities, and suddenly, a whisper slithered through the cold air. "Are you prepared to face what lies beneath?" Jake's heart surged in panic. The answer felt like the key, but the consequence was a terrifying unknown. The darkness enveloped them, thick and stifling, as if the SUV had been swallowed by the void. Jake squeezed his eyes shut, battling the frantic pulse of his heart. A moment passed, a moment too long before he dared to open them again. Inside that suffocating quiet, the shadows pulsated, dripping with memories he wasn't ready to confront. "Jake!" Mark's voice cut through, desperate yet steady. "Focus. We need to find a way out." Panic electrified Mark's tone, mingling with the palpable tension coiling around them. Jake blinked, visions of the figure still haunting him. It had whispered truths he could hardly comprehend, shattered pieces of his life laid bare and twisted into something unrecognizable. "What does it mean, unlock?" he murmured, more to himself than to Mark, trying to piece together the riddle in his mind, almost as if speaking it aloud would give it form. Suddenly, the interior lights flickered back to life, illuminating the crushing gloom. And there it was, the figure, looming against the windshield, all terrifying intensity. Its form flickered like a dying flame, the smirk on its face both mocking and sorrowful. "Do you really think you can escape what you are?" it taunted, the voice echoing against the metal walls of the SUV. "Turn your back, and it will consume you whole." Shadowed memories surged within Jake like a tsunami, crashing over him, dragging him under. Flashes emerged, laughter in dimly lit rooms, secrets whispered in urgency, choices made in desperation. Each snapped image cut deeper than the last. "Stop!" he yelled, the sound jarring against the stillness, his own voice a lonely echo. "You're not me. You're just a reflection of my worst fears." There was a pause, the figure almost considering him. "Ah, but what you fear the most is yourself, isn't it? The truth you keep buried is not just a reflection, it's the foundation of who you are. Each secret holds a weight you cannot escape." The weight of those words slammed into him, sharp and undeniable. He glanced at Mark, whose face was lit with bewilderment, fear shimmering in his eyes. "Mark, we can't let this thing manipulate us. We can face it," his throat constricted, squeezing out his resolve. "Aren't we stronger together?" "Together," Mark echoed, though doubt laced his voice. "But what if it?" Suddenly, without warning, the space seemed to constrict, pressing in on them, as if the SUV itself were alive and combating their resistance. Jake felt a tingle, a spark, relaying through the air. "Powerful humans are easily affected by shadows," the figure hissed, inching closer, its form shifting like a dark mist. "Are you ready to unlock your vault of despair? Brace yourself, Jake. Only one will prevail." The moment stretched, each second heavy with dread. Jake's breath quickened, heart pounding in his ears. "I'm not afraid of you." But beneath the bravado, a flicker of doubt snaked through. What if the truth was darker than he imagined? What if he wasn't strong enough to withstand it? Then, the figure's laughter morphed into something sinister. "The time has come. Are you willing to face your past, or surrender to it?" The ground trembled beneath them, rattling Jake's resolve. With a deep, shuddering breath, he felt the weight of his choices dissolve into clarity. He couldn't hide anymore. It was now or never. "Show me!" Jake shouted, fists clenched. "I won't back down." The darkness surged, swallowing the atmosphere around them as the world jolted violently. Reality twisted, muddled visions colliding in flashes of light and dark until a single voice rang throughout the chaos, a voice not of the figure, but his own. Time to see who I really am. Just then, the SUV shattered in a blinding white light, and Jake was thrust into the unknown. What awaited him on the other side could be the key to freedom or the greatest horror of all. Jake blinked against the harsh brightness that enveloped him. The blinding light faded, replaced by a scene from his past, his childhood home, its worn walls echoing with laughter. He stood in the living room, surrounded by whispers of love and innocence, the wooden floor creaking underfoot. It felt familiar yet so distant, as if he were witnessing a distant memory instead of truly being there. In an instant, the warm glow shifted. Shadows danced across the walls, distorting those cherished memories into something sinister. The figure, the dark version of himself, loomed at the edge of the room, a grotesque reflection of every choice that haunted him. "Welcome home, Jake," it purred seductively, stepping forward with an unsettling grace. "This is where it all began." "No," Jake shouted, his voice trembling. "I'm not here to relive it. I want to break free." Desperation laced his words, but the echoes of laughter turned hollow, twisting into mockery that surrounded him like a storm. "Break free?" The figure chuckled, the sound like nails on a chalkboard. "You've always been chained to this place, Haven TU. Every decision you made, every lie you told, it all leads back here." As Jake faced the intrusive darkness, he felt the weight of his past tightening around him. He saw his younger self in the corner, small and afraid, grappling with shadows that threatened to swallow him whole. He had buried the pain deep, but it seeped through the cracks, threatening to crush his very soul. "Face it, Jake," the figure hissed, its eyes glinting with malicious joy. "This is your truth. You can't escape who you really are." Heart pounding, Jake fought against the rising tide of emotion. "You're wrong," he yelled, summoning every ounce of courage. "I am not defined by my mistakes. I am better than this." With each declaration, the vivid memories morphed, revealing moments of vulnerability, kindness, and resolve, fighting against the shadows. He remembered helping friends, laughter shared over a campfire, moments of genuine love, fractions of life that anchored him to hope. Light began to flicker in the dark corners of this distorted reality, illuminating what he had long forgotten. "Those memories don't erase your dark side, Jake," the figure taunted, "they only mask them." As the figure moved closer, an overwhelming sense of power surged through Jake. He drew strength from the love he had experienced, even in darkness. "You can't have this part of me," he shouted. "I want to let you control me any longer." In that moment, he reached deep within himself, grasping the truth, a truth unlike the specter that taunted him. It was the understanding that every scar, every painful memory shaped him, but they didn't have to define his future. The key lay in acceptance, in embracing everything he was. "I'm ready to accept my past," he declared, the words solidifying into a powerful affirmation. "But you have no hold over me anymore. I will not let you dictate who I am." With that proclamation, energy exploded through him, a blinding light erupting in the room, pushing the figure back. "No!" it shrieked, becoming a tapestry of shadows unraveling, its essence twisting into a whirlwind. "You can't do this." The walls of his childhood home crumbled, fading into the din of nothingness as Jake was launched into a kaleidoscope of color, memories flashing by him like fireflies in the night. Each one stripped away the darkness clinging to him, revealing layers of resilience and love. When the colors settled, Jake found himself standing in a clearing, the sun bathing him in warmth. He blinked, heart racing, the air fresh and clear. No darkness, no shadows, only a sense of peace. "Jake!" Mark's voice echoed through the clearing, and Jake turned to see his friend rushing towards him, relief washing over his features. "You did it. You broke free." Jake felt tears prick at his eyes as reality spun back into focus. He was alive, truly alive. Past notions of shame and regret floated away like wisps of smoke. "I found the key, Mark," he panted, chest rising with emotion. "I found who I really am." Mark clasped his shoulder, pride shining in his eyes. "You fought against it, and you won. Now we have a real chance. Jake nodded, a newfound determination igniting within him. This journey had changed him. Shadows might linger, but they would never govern him again. His past was a part of him, a lesson in resilience rather than a prison. As they stood together, hand in hand against the horizon of endless possibilities, the sun shone brighter, a reminder that from darkness comes light, and from struggle, strength. With hope swelling in his heart, Jake whispered to the wind, "I'm ready for whatever comes next." You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support for the channel.